Good evening. I'd like to welcome everyone to tonight's Farmington School Board meeting. It's June the 6th. Would you all please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Tonight we have, as far as board members in attendance, we have myself, Charlie King, Josh Whitehouse, Stan Frieda, Joel Shagnon, and Tim Brown is absent tonight. Next, I'd like to welcome Brian Cisneros. It's his third day as being Farmington's new business director, right?
Administrator.
Administrator. Okay, business administrator. That reminds me, we got to change our cover letter.
Yes, we do. Thank you. I will do that.
So hopefully you found your way to your office and a chair and a coffee pot. Go ahead. Yes.
I'm so sorry to interrupt. For some reason, we can't hear you tonight. Normally, we can hear you nice and clear.
Okay. So is that better or?
Oh, somewhere it's better, yeah.
Okay, I'll speak into the microphone.
I'm not saying anything, we just couldn't hear you.
Next, we have public participation, and I see we have Blanche Tanner here. Come down to see us.
I did. Only because I missed the meetings.
We miss you too.
Well, I was gonna call in, but I don't understand the number, so I don't know all this PIN number and all that stuff. I don't know what that all is. Okay. I just have a few questions, really. I don't know, Charlie, I'm kind of put you on the spot, I guess,
Go ahead.
because Tim's not here tonight either, so I'm not really on the spot. But this is I just want to get some clarification on some information that was given out at the Budget Committee meeting.
Okay.
On the 24th. Tim mentioned that there's some federal money, Title I, I believe he said, an allocation that'll be shared with other schools. He mentioned Rochester, but I'm assuming that also includes Kingswood, because there's a sending school. You sent it.
No, I think he's talking about the ESSER grant.
Yes.
Okay, the ESSER grant, our amount was based on Title I allocations for last year.
Right.
Let me take this off so I can be understood. The amount was based on that. We are required by law to share that with any public school. We have Farmington residents who are attending who would qualify for Title I services. That's where there's a sharing piece there.
Okay.
So if it's a private school, and right now the one that is involved would be St. Elizabeth Seton. And so there's a formula by which we have to divide the amount of the number of students we have by the number of students attending there who qualify for services. And then they would get X amount per pupil that are involved.
So
Right.
that would be prorated based upon
It's
attendance of our residents to
Yes.
their schools.
Correct. And right now, I believe it's 4 students.
Okay. So I was trying to connect it with the vocational technical.
Yeah,
but it has nothing to do
it's
with it.
not
Okay.
voc related.
That's in my mind. I just.
Yep.
And what does that stand for? ESSER.
Oh, goodness.
Never mind. That's okay.
Okay.
It's fine. I just didn't.
It's educational something.
something.
I will get that to
Okay,
you.
it's not a big, I just, you know me, I like to try to figure what these acronyms are. Okay, and also it was mentioned that federal government meals were given out, were 210 students. Do we know about approximately how many families that helped out? It's a good thing, I think it's great, but do we have any idea of the number of families that?
The majority of families were picking up 2 meals. There were a few that were 1, there were a few that were 3, but the majority were in the 2 range. So I would say probably 100 families.
Maybe 100 or so?
In
Okay.
general.
Okay. And then also, I was curious about the Wi-Fi service to students and families. Would that be about the same, or do you know how many families the Wi-Fi service?
I don't have the numbers off the top of my head. I can go back and look that up.
Okay, I just was curious.
It wasn't as many as I was anticipating at
Yeah.
first, although we are getting some feedback that if we were to go remote again in the fall, those numbers may increase because we would have more than one student on a device at the same time.
In the same
therefore requiring a little more robust kick.
Okay, because it's kind of, yeah. And then also was mentioned about the Chromebooks. And do you have an idea of how many Chromebooks were given to students? Because Charlie had mentioned something, they may need to expand that.
We only did Chromebooks, one per family for those who needed them. And we started at high school, we moved it down into 7, 8, and then down into, I think, 6 and up. We are looking in the fall to make sure that as close as we can get, we are 1-to-1 for every student in the district. So that will involve more pieces that would be paid for through that ESSER grant.
Okay, good. I mean, these questions are not because I'm questioning that these things shouldn't be happening. I just am curious, I'm hoping that people get what they need, and I know that they will.
Originally, when we did where we approved, I think it was $25,000 Chromebooks.
Right.
That was potentially, or a funding source was going to be through FEMA. That may change.
So actually, the Chromebooks can't go through FEMA.
Right.
Those will be part of the ESSER grant.
So-
And then any additionals that we purchase would also be there.
Initially, we thought that would qualify, but they changed the rules
Yep.
as we're going forward. So now there's another funding source, which those will be going to, as far as seeking reimbursement for, instead of FEMA.
Right. The HSEM grant, which is a FEMA grant, but it's under Homeland Security, will do a 75% reimbursement for facilities pieces, the personal protection equipment, those sorts of things. Anything else that's educationally related has to go through the ESSER grant. We can't put it in the HSEM grant. So
And I know those rules change all the time. And the ESSER grant, that's a federal grant, correct?
they're both federal,
Okay.
and they're both, the ESSER grant is 100% reimbursement, and they are allowing us to go back, so those Chromebooks that we purchased with the board's authorization in March can be covered under that. We can take that as a reimbursable now. We can go backwards with that. Typically, it's you have to get permission and then you can move forwards. They're allowing us to go back on those pieces that were specifically for, oh, we're remote, we got to do this, folks. So,
Well, and I would just like to congratulate the school and the teachers and everybody involved with the whole change and all that. There must have been sort of a nightmare, but I'm sure you all handled it well, and I just want to thank everybody in the district for doing a good job, which I'm sure you did. The parades and all the stuff for the kids, fabulous. Changing gears a little bit, I'm interested in the Siemens project and the Affinity, I believe the company's name is Affinity Lighting. And the fact that their quote came in half of what Siemens' quote was for the lighting portion only. I'm assuming that they were quoting on the same, I guess you call it, scope of work. I mean, I'm assuming the work would be the same that they're doing, whether it's this Affinity Lighting or Siemens in terms of lighting. I guess I'm surprised that the quote would be half the price of what Siemens had said it was going to be.
So I'll try to answer some of that. So Siemens was quoting, not Siemens lighting, but somebody else, other manufacturer's lighting.
Right, okay, but I mean,
So-
yeah.
And Infinity is quoting their own lighting. And were they exactly apples to apples? I don't know if I could say that. There were similar competing products that they quoted.
but we weren't given that tight a
Okay,
specification
all
on either.
right. I just was curious because it seemed like such a difference.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, the board is certainly looking at both of those, considering them. But the Siemens was rolled into, that's one section of the, like, tire.
Right.
I think there was 3 potential phases. The first one, which was the initial phase, which had that in it, along with some heating and ventilation and other furnace stuff.
Right. And then, but the Affinity Lighting, they didn't have any knowledge about the lighting portion before they gave you a quote, did they?
They
from
had
who?
requested,
From the lighting portion of
on the
the...
lighting portion, they had requested our bills for 1 month so that they had kind of an idea of what our consumption was. They had also had engineers that walked through the buildings, so they had done measurements, counted what we had. They did do that prior to the quote.
Right. But was your
So-
question regarding whether they received Siemens information?
Yeah,
No.
okay.
No,
And also...
they only had just their own
Their own-
walkthrough.
Typical
and
things
then-
would be, which would be a 1 month or 2 months bills, and then a walk through the building, right?
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just curious.
Yeah.
You know, this COVID thing, you know, it makes your mind go a little crazy when you're sitting and watching all this stuff. You just kind of get all these questions come rolling out. I apologize, this will be the only time I'll bug you the next month, but anyway. Okay, I was curious too about the roof money. Charlie had mentioned something about if all the money is not used that was allocated through a warrant article for roof projects, that perhaps the money could either sit or be reallocated for other infrastructure purposes. But I'm assuming that if it was money that was allocated for roof, it would have to be reallocated to another roof project, or could it go to something else?
I was just speaking of a would-be scenario.
Yeah.
There's no,
I can answer that. if
but
you-
I think if it was a capital reserve fund, full roofing, we have a bunch of roofs that need to be repaired.
Right.
So I wasn't really saying we should take it out and put a new baseball field in.
Well, and actually, it's not in a capital reserve just for roofs.
Right.
So we do have other roofing projects that need to be done that haven't been bid on for that piece.
Okay,
But
that's-
the capital reserve projects from which those would come are capital improvements to the buildings. So we would, if we didn't expend it all, then whatever wasn't expended nothing comes out of that capital reserve until we expend, and then we're reimbursed by the capital reserve. So if we don't spend it all, they don't send it to us.
Now, the way the warrant article was written,
It's up to.
it's up
those
to,
amounts.
but who was the agents to expend, based upon a vote?
The board are agents to expend, I believe, yeah.
So it doesn't have to
On
go.
one of them, we're not, the one for the high school, we're not agents to
Okay.
expend, the one for the other.
So say, hypothetically, say if there was some savings on high school roof, and say there was $50,000 left in that, that would have to go back to the voters to be repurposed?
If you were going to do anything else out of that, it would need to go to the voters, yes.
So in some scenarios, but in some of the other funds, we were the agents to expend, so if we
You would
wanted
need to have
to
a public hearing, and then you could do it.
say, so some of that, we could say, okay, there's money on that fund, that we could have a public hearing and say, okay, we want to take that and put that towards other roof improvements, or say, other building improvements. Because that's open enough to do that,
It is.
not for the high school one, but for,
The ones that are general buildings and grounds improvements are fairly broad in scope.
I mean, when we get to that point, if in fact we do get to that point, we'd make sure that we're authorized to do that, so without going through how the warrant articles, or how those funds were set up and what the intent was. I mean, you got to go through that to say,
Yeah.
yes, we're properly
I have the
authorized to
list.
do this.
Oh, I know you'll be right on it, Charlie.
I'm going to try to. I'm
not
going to try to
working.
be honest.
And I know that we have a new business administrator. Welcome to the district. And I would like to just do a public thank you to Jenna. I did call her when I was doing a walk one morning, and I saw on the door out here that the job was open. So I did call her and thank her for, she did a lot of work for the district, and I just wanted to do a public thank you. I have some questions for about the teacher contract. I wonder if I should wait, though, and ask about that on the, at the budget committee meeting. A public hearing, the public hearing for the contract. Would it be better if I just wait?
No,
Either is,
go ahead. I'll
I
try
don't want
answer
to take
it.
up your night, though. I don't think they're long.
You're lucky. We got I think, a short agenda, but go
Okay,
ahead.
just really quick. Okay, professional development days and hours changed and all that, and so that was, I understand that. How many staff development days? How's that going to be? You're going to eliminate the Wednesday early release day? Was that the idea of this?
we are. What will happen, the calendar that was approved by the board does have 8 early release days throughout the calendar, but it's not every Wednesday.
Okay.
There also, because of this whole situation with which we've been blessed this spring, it's been on the state books for several years that we can go by hours rather than by days. Our contracts are still by days, but we have the ability to go by number of hours. And while we are certainly looking to exceed the number of hours for the year, we still have more days beyond even exceeding to fulfill a contract. So we will potentially have some professional development days at the end, or be able to intersperse them in the middle even, and get some more days out of this.
So the hours applies to the students' learning
Right.
time, and the days referred to
Teacher contract.
teacher contracts.
contract,
So
yeah.
right now, we have a surplus of teacher time that doesn't, over the minimum.
Have to be student facing.
Over the minimum requirement.
Okay. And the reimbursement for the new teachers to remove their debt, their student debt has been removed the old reimbursement, the old meaning what was previously in the contract for college reimbursement is still in effect?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
And that piece that was removed had only been taking a portion of that. They could take, it was less than a third to apply,
Right, it wasn't a lot, so I was, right.
but it's been removed.
Yeah, don't get me started on that one. Okay, and then hours of operation, I was curious about that. That's really interesting because I know that you have to be flexible with the changing times and all that. But in the contract, is there a specific time when the school can start and can end? In other words, they're not going to be here at 4 o'clock in the morning. Is there a certain time frame in that contract that says when they can start and stop?
Yes. So the language that was added, which is public at this point, has been ratified, is that under normal conditions, the hours of operation, which I believe is 7:30 to 3, is what we're proceeding with. In case of an emergency, the school, or the SAU, has ability to adjust
In conversation
and consensus with the union to adjust those. Say if you had to have a staggered start where we have an attendance issue because of social distancing, that you may need to have a staggered start for classroom size or whatever, then we'll basically work together. But as far as in normal situations and a non-emergency status, it is the way it has been.
Okay, that's a good idea.
So it's just flexibility in like the situation we have going now.
Okay, good idea. Will you know on July 15th at the public hearing what the tax impact will be of the contract?
I believe we'll have an estimate.
We'll have an estimate, yes. Yeah.
All right.
And that will be that will be impacted by the monies going back to the town. That will be, which are still somewhat fluid because we haven't had our audit yet. We haven't done the MS-25 yet.
Okay.
So that will be delineated later, but we can give you an estimate like we gave an estimate in March.
There'll be an estimate of the increase, but there'll also be, I don't know if it'll be at that meeting, an estimate of what we'll be turning back to the town, which may be a decrease. So you may see an increase here and a decrease here, what the decrease is, right? When do you think we'll know what that is based upon that MS-25?
MS-25, late August, early September. But as far as, there are some pieces we know we're going back. We can say, yes, we know that's going back. Can I say down to the penny? Not yet.
Yeah, okay.
Not yet.
Just curious.
But hopefully at that meeting, we'd have an estimate.
That's good.
Do you think we can have an estimate for that?
Okay, and did I
I'll do what I
understand?
can.
And we can just paraphrase it with this is an estimate, and this is the, whether it's plus or minus 10 or 15%.
We know the
20%.
2.5% hasn't been retained. So there are some pieces there that we can say we know this.
At least when it comes to that public hearing, that we can hopefully have as much information for the taxpayers to be aware of what they may be subject to for as taxation, and then they can at least feel informed to make a decision.
And by the time we get to the deliberative session, we should have more solid numbers.
Right.
That would be the 11th of August. And then by the time we get to closer to the vote, it should continue to gel.
Okay, August 11 is the definite date for the deliberative?
Right now on the timeline that we have, yes.
Okay. And I just want to make sure I understood this right.
Best I can tell you.
Okay. I understand in education, everything is fluid and everything changes, so I understand, believe me.
Well, we have very definite timelines of X number of days before this has to be posted,
Yeah.
this has to happen, so.
Charlie made that very
Right
clear.
now, it's the 11th.
I was just
He
going
made
from
that
the
very
notes.
clear at the vote. Now, I want to make sure I understood this correctly, that in terms of the contract, the money, nothing has changed. The money stays exactly the same as the previous contract was. The only thing that changed were the 3 items: professional development, the reimbursement of teacher, and the hours of operation. But the money and the contract is the same as it was before.
Yes.
That's what you said, right?
Yep.
Charlie, did I understand that correctly?
And that's correct, right, Ruth?
That is correct,
That's
yes.
correct.
So, all things being equal, the tax impact doesn't change. But
Right.
because there are additional monies being returned to the town, the tax impact may lower because of.
Maybe reduced
those-
by monies returned.
Right.
But,
From the district.
and my point about that is simply that I hope that the town will get behind the contract like like I wish they had done the first time, but that's the past, we can't change that. But, the teachers, it seems to me when I just read these little things, I have not seen the contract, but I'm just reading and hearing, the teachers have made some concessions here, and I just feel like, especially in these times, the town really needs to get behind the staff, and I hope they support the contract, but, we'll see. Also, just two more things, and then I'm done. And this is all completely different topic here. It would be really nice when everything gets back to normal and all members of the committee can be in attendance at these meetings. Because when you're watching on TV, it does make a difference. You can hear it better. I think there's probably more dialogue going on, so it'll be a lot better. So I hope this COVID thing goes away and people can feel comfortable coming back.
Your mouth to God's ear.
I know. The other thing I was curious about is this, the policy that you talked about, I think it was the last meeting, maybe a couple of meetings too, you talked about it. The policy that you have agreed on, and I don't know what that policy says because I don't have, social media. I mean, I don't have internet, so I can't look this stuff up. But I'm just curious about this, the student personal devices that they can bring to school.
Yes.
Policy. I'm thinking to myself, what is that? What kind of devices can these kids bring? Can they bring their own computer?
Yes.
Yes.
So if I'm a student and I'm sitting in someone's classroom and I have my own personal computer there, can I go on my computer and play with games and do all kinds of stuff while the teacher's instructing?
They would only be able to access getting online via a filtered student network that they would have access to here at school. Teacher still has the right and authority to say screens down, regardless, whether it's your screen or our screen, screens down. I'm looking at the bringing your own devices, not so much for just general use. Particularly at the point that we're able to be one-to-one, it becomes much less of an issue. We've had students who have been taking online classes and having their own devices to be able to start the work here and take it with them. It makes sense for them to be continuing with that. This doesn't mean that because we have a policy that outlines how it can happen, that it's a done deal, you get to bring whatever you want.
Okay.
And so
I was just curious about that, and not because I'm at this point I'm so far removed from media and all that stuff. I can just remember back in the day in the classroom, our biggest battle was cell phones and kids putting phones away. We didn't have to worry about computer. So
well, and cell
that was
phones
a
are a
few years
computer
ago.
in their hand too.
But the world's changed, and I realize the needs have changed. Like the thing that you're talking about with the student starting a course and then taking. So I understand things have changed. So I'm trying to get with the times. And also, I hope the weather cooperates. I did see a thing in the paper about your graduation on June 11. I hope the weather cooperates. I was glad to see that article. It was in the Rochester Times. See, that's how elementary I am. And I just think it's great. I hope they can pull it off, and I hope the weather cooperates for them because they certainly deserve it. And
we hope so.
And that's
too.
all I have. And thank you all very much for your time. I appreciate it. And I just had to come up and see you, and I'll be back in, I don't know, 2 or 3 months maybe or something like that. I don't know, whenever. But anyway, thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Thanks, Blanche.
Thank you,
That's
Blanche.
all. Thanks.
Moving along, I think the next thing on our agenda is reports. I want to start off with the treasurer's report. I don't know who was going to prepare that. I did have a question.
Okay. And this is a corrected April report.
Aha, that's
It
my
says corrected
question.
down at the bottom.
I see that.
Yes.
What was corrected?
I have not talked to Rachel on this. I'm assuming that I know that in this month there was an in and out that was credited to the wrong month. I think this was what hit this report, but I will certainly find that out for sure for you.
Okay, so this was April. We're now in July. Have we seen reports past this? Have we seen May and June?
We have not seen May and June yet.
Is that, what typically is the normal delay from when we see a treasurer's report versus the month? Is it?
Done.
Yes. Yes? Jen?
Go ahead, Jen.
Hello?
If you could tilt this computer just a little bit, we cannot see Mr. Cisneros at all. I was asked if we could be tilted just a slight bit.
Okay.
Sorry for the interruption.
Well, oh, I see. You might have to move to that chair. There you go. I'll move to the middle. I don't want to scare anybody off.
They've seen me, they want to see you.
Everyone wants to see it. There we go.
Okay, thank you. I will double check that for sure, and I will have that for the board next time.
I mean, first, yeah.
Typically, the lag is at least a month,
Okay.
because we need to get back all of the bank statements and all of the check reconciliations in order for her to then do that piece. So it doesn't happen like
Right, but
right
at
at the
this
end.
rate, this is 3
Yes.
months. So,
Yes, it is. Yes,
so
it
I
is.
just, yeah, I didn't know what the, so
And
this
I
a
know
month
that
and-
Angie has been in working on pieces as well. So
Okay, so this may be due to a transition time?
it may be partly transition, partly getting these pieces in. April was right after, as we hit, everything blew up in March.
Could
And
you,
so-
could you get back to us on what that correction was?
I will.
Because it would make an impact on, was it April to March, the difference, or is it April to May? I mean, and what was the amount, where was it, I mean, it could be
Because-
$10. It could be-
Because this is reconciling April, I'm sure that it was a March to April rather than an
Okay.
April to May, otherwise it would be affecting a May report. I believe,
then-
but I will double check that.
Then if it's affected March, then there should be a corrected one for that month also.
I will double check it.
If it is, we probably should bring it back to us, I guess, for
I will
just
double
for,
check it, yep,
because we've already seen one for March that we've approved,
right.
so if that needs to
And
be,
you have seen one for April as well, I believe.
right. So,
Okay. Let me see. Okay.
financials,
So what you have in your report are, these were run on the 2nd, but as of the 30th of June. So these are very rough pieces that give you more or less where things ended. There are a couple of grants.
what do you, which one do you want to start with?
Let's do the grants expenditures. There are, I believe there are 2 grants that still are not fully reported. So those will be done, and I will double check that. I think we had one that we were still looking at a difference in.
Which one would those be?
That was Title I for 2018-19. We have discovered the difference. We did report that. That is reported. That was on here. And so we may be pretty near done on that part. What we don't have back, we have the expenditures. We don't have the revenues back on those expenditures because in early June, we were told you must get everything in quickly, so because we're going to not pay anything past June 4th, we got everything in quickly and then received an ACH transfer that said we were getting a Title I allotment, and then lo and behold, we had a difference of about $56,000 or so that just didn't show up, and Janet checked and said, okay, where did this go? Well, we couldn't quite cover that part, so you'll get it later in July. But they'd sent us the ACH saying that it was coming. So we have a reconciliation piece there. We need to go back and do. The money will come and it will be credited toward June, but it didn't come when they said it was going to.
Was that was that verbal or was that in writing?
I believe she does have that as an email. I have
Okay.
a copy of it, yep. Which was a little disconcerting that they get to hold off on their bills, but we don't get to, but anyway. So the expenditures and the revenues for the month are not going to match up exactly because we haven't received all the reimbursements for those. But when they come in, they will be booked on June of 2020. And so that too will affect that end of year balance. We still have some pieces coming in, so
Right.
there's more revenues coming in yet.
And that 50-something thousand, we're planning that that's coming in.
Oh, it's
because
coming in.
We've got a commitment in writing.
Yes.
Okay, so we're
Well,
planning
and
based upon
they
it.
owe it to us. We have the allocation. We've expended.
Okay.
It's coming to us. It's just not here when they said it was coming. So, so the general fund, those pieces coming in will alter the bottom line because they reimburse what we have expended. Anything on the entitlement grants, we expend and then get reimbursed for. And so while it does come in under Fund 20, that then becomes part of the Fund 10 at the end of the year. So that will shift in a positive direction, the amount of money that's left there. And then the other piece that, Brian, did you bring with you those warrant article pieces that I gave you? No, okay. So we had several warrant articles in March that were also passed. $50,000 to the bus CRF. Those pieces will come out of unexpended fund balance. So that's about $200,000 that will be going into the capital reserves as well. So there will be some positives coming in,
Right.
and there will be some of that will go out. So this number that you see on page 32 isn't a done deal.
On which report? The general?
The 32 is the general fund, yes.
General Fund 10, F10?
So right now, what you see on that is $947,493. That will go both up and down before we get everything nailed down. We still have bills that we expect to come in based on what was expended in June. We still have, so that will be some outflow.
Right.
We still have revenues that we're expecting to come in, so.
But before our public hearing, we should have a better estimate.
We should have a better estimate, but keep in mind that our public hearing is next Wednesday. We won't have any other bills coming in and expended until the other side of that public hearing, because if they haven't hit us now, I
Right.
don't have a manifest for you to sign for us to expend. So those won't go out until at least the 21st.
I think as long as we can make
We can give a good
reasonable
guesstimate.
estimate and put a number on it, and with a disclaimer of this is an estimate, say it's going to be within 10% or 15%.
Easily, yeah, easily. And then
So-
there's always those pieces those last minute booking adjustments that the auditors make to say, this is actually in this fund, this should be here, this shifts to there, you should have put this on last year, and so it shifts the bottom line a little bit again, but again, that part should be minimal. Should be minimal.
Okay, anything else on the financials?
Oh, and I do have elementary and secondary school emergency relief is the ESSER grant. Thank you, Jen. So, I was too far away to see.
Okay.
Were there any other questions?
Any other questions from the board on the financials? Okay, so moving to old business.
Next month, Tag, you're it. Yeah.
Good.
Okay.
I'll have to stay up a little bit later, come up with some good questions, see if he's paying attention. Next on old business, we have Affinity Lighting update. So I don't know, Ruth, and I know you put something in our packet.
I did. So that's what I have for an update. That was the piece that Steve Lieber had sent to me back on, let's see. He sent that on July 1st.
Yeah.
And I added that to the packet for today. So that's what I have for an update. I haven't spoken with him since he emailed
Yeah.
that. It's just, that essentially is our update. What he's given is the confirmation of the anticipated project incentives and the cost for financing under the municipal lease purchase, which were the two pieces that the board had asked him
Yeah.
to follow up on.
So I went through it, and it answered a lot of questions. I guess for me, on the financing portion, I know when I was a selectman, that the selectman couldn't enter into a lease contract, or, contract as far as a lease purchase or whatever, more than 5 years without bringing for the voters. Are we held to that same time period as a district?
We are held to a non-appropriations clause as well. So not only is it
Right.
not more than 5 years, but, right.
But I guess, is there, and I don't know, that's why I'm asking the question, is there a term, like say when we go out for copiers, and, when we lease our
5
copiers?
years.
5 years.
Yep.
But is that a requirement or a restriction based upon RSA?
Yes.
And what RSA, do you know? Could you,
I can look it up.
but this would fall into the same situation.
It would. It would.
So,
Provided that it is and I would need to double check the difference between the leasing and lease purchase. We've done leases for buses over,
right.
usually they're 4-year leases.
Yeah, I think it falls in, it's going to fall in maybe the same laws, but just a lease purchase, $1 buyout, or a lease where you turn it back in.
Right.
I mean,
And,
typically.
For lighting, it would be kind of silly to rip it out of the ceiling.
No, so it's basically, and I assume it would follow the same regulation?
We've done it for 10 years.
With a vote?
Without a vote.
Without a vote.
Enter a lease without, it's a lease, not a purchase. And you're not loaning money, you're leasing money.
But what happens if it's a lease with a $1 buyout?
That's a different story.
Because that's essentially ownership.
But again, it was actually our Siemens contract. That's what it
Yeah.
was. So 10-year
So
lease.
But what
with
was
the performance contract, it ends up under a different,
But when you did the Siemens contract or the lease, was it put before the voters for approval?
Nope.
But that was a city, not a town?
It was a cooperative district, 3 towns.
3 towns.
But we got a legal okay to enter a lease without the town, without having to vote on a deliberative session. Because it was a lease versus a finance. If we financed it, we'd have to go in front of the deliberative.
But what was the product that you were leasing?
Lights, boilers.
Huh.
So,
But that is in essence, it's a lease to purchase.
yeah, I guess it would be because they're
So,
boilers.
interesting
Yeah.
opinion.
Don't,
I know.
I'm not an attorney. I'm just telling you.
you just play one on TV.
Yeah,
Yes.
I stayed on Holiday Inn last
Yeah,
night.
because I'm sure, I don't know if we would take that approach here.
And I'm not wholly recommending that either.
No, but
because
I think
there was some pushback on it.
Historically, that might not sit
No,
well.
historically, I think we try to ask first.
And I'll sorry to interrupt real quick. They were just mentioning to me they have a hard time hearing Brian. I'm sorry, Mr. Cisneros, if you could speak up a little louder.
Okay.
And that mic only hits the TV studio, it doesn't hit the computer. So that's where, all of them.
Oh.
These are only for the broadcast,
Oh, I
they're
gotcha.
not for the computer.
Gotcha.
So
So you're talking
you get to
two
yell
different
as well.
audiences.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so I guess that would be, that question for me is, where do we stand as far as authority to even to consider that? Because I don't know we can go for 7 years. I don't know if we have authority. I mean, we probably find a legal opinion and say we don't even need to ask, but I don't, or the question is, historically, has the SAU entered into lease or lease to purchase in the past, and it's been past 5 years?
Since I've been here, it's been 5 years or less.
Okay.
But
Historically, that's been.
historically, Joel and Stan may have more institutional memory there.
Joel, do you know of any other case in your history that you guys have entered into a contract past 5 years without bringing it before the voters?
No, not during my tenure. I can't think of one.
Yeah, I don't think we ever have.
Okay. Anyone else have any questions on that update from Affinity? I think that's the one question that I had is
Okay.
just to see where we stood with it, but
And is that something that you want me to get an opinion on, or just leave it for now?
well, I mean, you might be able to research the RSA and then put it in our
Okay.
notes of saying, this is what I found,
Okay.
this is the history of this district. You might want to reach out to saying, then even though we haven't, are we legally responsible to? I mean, that might be the third step, to do,
Okay.
you know, figure out, have we done it in the past? And what the RSA says, and I guess interpretation of where this would fall under that. I think that's a normal progression.
Understood. I was just checking to see if
Yeah.
they were.
I mean, because if it's something we're going to consider, we want to make sure that we're properly authorized to
Absolutely.
consider it. Anything else on that from the other board members? Next, moving to, we have on here a roof RFP. I know we had received something from Jeff Greenhaw.
You had received something at the last meeting.
Yep.
And you had said to go ahead and ask him
Right.
for the Henry Wilson piece. I've not received that back from him yet, so I will
Right.
check in with him again and hope to have that for you on the 20th.
Right, because when we look at the original scope of work that we authorized for, which is the pre-bid, that is in that package. So that's owed to us by that
Correct.
So
Right.
I don't know what else in there that makes sense that we would expect.
At this
it.
point, yeah, it was the pre-bid portion, and then we would then look to see.
Right.
I will put it into our bid form, and then whether you're looking to have,
But, so if we were saying to say to Jeff, please finish this scope of work, and I look at his pre-bid list, assist SEU writing a clear RFP. Well, first of all, was review existing documents, meet with staff, which he's done. Assist in writing a clear RFP, which he's done on one school. Assist staff in developing a list of qualified bidders.
that part has, I don't have a list.
Right.
I have.
That would need to be completed.
Yep.
And assist the staff pre-bid visits and responses to pre-bid questions and qualifications. Now, this last one, when you're reading it now, we haven't set anything for that to accomplish, right? Because we have not said pre-bid site visits, because we haven't contacted any qualified bidders. We don't have the list.
Right.
So does it make sense, reading this, that be in this scope of work? Or should it be put out, or maybe it's in the scope of work?
If it was in the scope of work that you had
Yeah.
made a motion that you were going to pay him this much to do this much.
Yeah.
And so I guess you're looking at this much to pay that much.
Right, so he needs, I guess before, he needs to get items 1, 2, 3, 4 completed. And at that point, the only thing left in that would be to, if we want him to do this, which is assist staff with pre-bid site visits and responses to pre-bid questions and clarifications. So for that to happen, this board would have to say, okay, we've got this information, now we're gonna go forward, because now we're gonna ask people to come in and give us bids.
Correct.
So I
So
think
that would be the next
Right.
motion for the next stage and
But
what he's.
that would also, so, this last item of this scope, he can't complete till the board says that. But everything else, he can complete in this scope of work, which is getting up to
And-
the list of the qualified bidders.
And are the other board members aware of which document you're pointing back to?
I'm pointing back to his proposal from May 11th that was sent to Ruth Ellen Bond. It's in the May folder. I don't know which month.
Well, May.
May, but it may be which,
If it was sent to me the 11th,
yeah.
it may be in the May 18th.
Yeah. Because at this point, he needs to complete this. So we
Yeah,
need to
the
get this.
SAU roofing proposal
Yeah.
was, that was in the May 18th folder.
Yeah. So I would,
Actually,
Unless
the pre-bid site visits is included in the pre-bid section.
right, that's what I'm saying.
Yep.
Yeah.
And
So,
responses.
and that, I think
So
this
up
board,
to that point would
I
be.
don't think he can complete that till the board says, yes, we want to do that.
Well, you had approved essentially the pre-bid services
Right.
for 2550,
Yep.
which goes through
2250.
including,
Right.
includes assist with pre-bid site visits. So I would say that part is part of what he's already been
Tasked
contracted to do. Yes.
But he may not be able to complete that unless we say, let's go forward and bring in bidders to give us the bids.
Right, and you haven't
But-
seen the piece for Henry Wilson to say
Right,
bring in
and-
bidders.
But everything up to that, he can complete, and I would like to see him complete before the next meeting. And
Makes sense.
not Monday morning. He
Got
needs
it.
to be done, it needs to be before our next meeting, so everyone can
So that
review
you
it.
can get it in the folder.
then-
And do you want that in his format, or do you want that on the bid form for the next meeting?
I think we talked about having it on a bid form
Right.
at the meeting, so that the board
So I'll
would be
need-
looking at the exact RFP as
So I'll
we
need
go
time
out.
to do that, okay.
Yeah, and so give him a date that he needs to have it back, and if it's Wednesday, give him that date. Says, you gotta have it back to me on Wednesday prior to that Monday meeting.
Okay.
And this is what I think needs to get done. And then the board can consider that, says, okay, let's finalize this by setting, okay, well, we are now going to go forward with this, and Larry's gonna have to work with him as far as having people come on campus and whatever that entails. And then that will be completed.
The sooner the better.
Right.
Right,
We have problems.
That's why my discussion is, that we wanted
We
to,
have a skylight that's now
leaking.
completely damaged in the framework.
so we have, do we have that covered, temporarily covered?
We're going to, but
Yeah.
it's when there's a heavy rain, but it's just noticed it this morning that paint and stuff and it's
Yeah, I
heating
think
the
we-
interior of the frame.
We'll probably have to have some, hopefully you can
Flex seal.
temporarily get it sealed up. If you can't, please come back to the board. Maybe we'll have to consider having that, if you can't temporarily seal it for, could be 2 months, then we're gonna need to say, okay, this needs to be repaired. I mean, you gotta let us know. Any other board members' discussion on that item? You good? Okay, moving along, the next thing is a budget hearing for CBA. I think we're working with, that is the 15th?
Yes, it's on the 15th. I put that on there because I wanted to make sure, and Blanche
Yes.
brought it up beautifully for us, but wanted to make sure that that word got out. That'll be on July 15th. I believe the meeting starts at 7 PM.
Which is next Wednesday.
It's next Wednesday, a week from Wednesday.
Next Wednesday, 7 PM.
Yes.
Put it on your calendar.
And I believe that there is a limit to the number who are allowed to attend in person, but it will be live streamed. I know at the budget committee meeting, there was a limit, I think, to 7 in the audience.
So who do you think should be here from this board? We have a representative, Tim, who's the backup representative?
You.
I guess I'm the-
So that would be you.
Yeah, so I was planning on what might need to go, or what your recommendations, but I will go and speak, and I assume you might be there?
I will be there.
Okay.
Yes. I won't say with bells on, but I will be there. And Brian will make his debut and his nod to the budget committee.
We got them all softened up here.
Nice.
We gave him some fresh eggs.
And then I would say anyone else who wishes to speak
Okay.
to. I don't know if Stan's available. He was also on the negotiating committee.
Yeah, Stan, you should more than
Not to
welcome
put
to
you on the
come.
spot.
But sounds like it's going to be Ruth Ellen, Brian, myself, and possibly Tim.
Depending upon what Tim's able to do. Yep. Okay.
Next, in the new business, we have a deputy treasurer appointment. I think
Yes.
that we had a
So
request.
I think there was an email that was put into the folder for you. Oh, okay, good. And actually, there's one other piece here that we need to do. So for the deputy treasurer appointment, Mrs. Cardinal has asked to appoint a deputy treasurer. Did I send that to you?
Yes, I thought
Okay.
you did.
I believed that I
got
did,
out of the
but,
wrong folder.
okay, that's easy to do.
I'm not a Google Drive expert yet.
That's okay. And actually, I'm looking back in the, there it is, deputy treasurer appointment. So, she has asked to appoint Rachel Bork as deputy treasurer. She is intending to appoint. She's letting the board know. She is elected. Deputy is appointed with board approval. So,
I guess my only question is, has this person served in this capacity before, have any experience?
she was your current treasurer. She's
Okay.
the one who did the April report.
So she's the,
Current.
Current.
Well, actually, no, Angie is now current as of
so
July 1.
she's the former.
She's the former, yes.
So I would,
She's your most recent.
right, so I would make that motion to approve Rachel Bork as being a deputy treasurer.
Second.
Seconded by
Joel.
Joel. Any discussion? Not hearing any, all in favor?
Aye.
Next thing we have on the agenda is public forum. I think Ruth Ellen, you've got some.
I do, and actually, before we do that one, I just got a text from the police chief. Could we add to about the
Yeah.
grounds here for graduation? Can we do that first?
Go ahead.
Okay. Wanted to make a request, and I believe that's in here too, but I forgot to put it on the agenda. For Saturday's graduation, we have an unusual situation with Henry Wilson parking lot being school property, but once we hit the ball fields, it is a joint town school venture because of that land trust. And so Chief Drury and I were talking and had asked the selectmen and the board together to make a motion that the grounds, including the parking lot and playground for Henry Wilson, and the ball, as well as the town baseball and softball fields and tennis courts, are closed to the public on Saturday from 7 a.m. to 1 p.m. so that we aren't contending with additional pieces for the police to do for graduation. So the official is, by order of the Farmington Selectmen and the Farmington School Board, the Henry Wilson Memorial School grounds, including parking lot and playground, as well as the town baseball and softball fields and tennis courts, are closed to the public on Saturday, July 11th, 2020.
But we would have to make a motion for our portion of that.
Yes.
So I'll make a motion to close that area designated in that previous discussion for that day.
Second.
Seconded by Joel. Discussion?
I have discussion.
Go ahead.
Ms. Vaughn, you've mentioned that a few times. I would ask, when you have free time, which I know isn't very often, to do a little research on that trust. I think it had an expiration date. And
I did do some research on the trust, and I did not see an expiration date on it, but I will look
Okay.
again. I will look
I
again.
remember before Jerry McCarthy passed away, he told me it had an expiration date, so I tended to believe most of what he told me.
Understood?
Do you
The
remember?
other thing is, well, we're gonna vote on closing it anyway. I don't think we should ever get wrapped up with when it becomes a matter of safety and security, that we can't, shut down Henry Wilson Gymnasium, Bertman Rondo Auditorium because it was used with their trust money. I mean, we certainly have the right to do that.
Yeah, it's, right, no question there.
Okay.
Joel, do you have any, as far as the expiration date, during your discussion with Mr. McCarthy, did he give you a date, like of when he thought it might be expired?
Trying to think of why this came up. It was a number of years ago, Charlie, and I didn't delve into it too much.
The
I
last,
could ask my dad. I think he was involved at the time and see what his recollection is. But Gary had just said that. I mean, and I just kind of took it for. Usually took it for gospel when Jerry told me, but I don't know. I never really delved into it, and I don't recall the date.
I did do research on it when we were looking at the possibility of expanding what is now the transportation building, the former SAU, to extend that before we moved to Henry Wilson. And we were going to be limited to how far over that building could potentially go because of that land trust.
I think it just gets fuzzy. I understand that, certain monies were used to create it, but again, just like Bertman Rondo Gym, it's on the district to maintain, keep it clean, keep it secure, and so, I'm glad we're going to make this motion and everything, but I don't think we should ever feel guilty because we have to, not allow something to take place on one of these areas because we don't feel that it's safe or that it would be good for the building or whatever. I mean, we do have that latitude. I mean, we need to be careful. I think that the message that we put out is that, you can go on it whenever you want or whatever. That's not the case. I really don't believe that's the case.
Okay?
Could you, when you research that, could you put copies of that in the next folder for people to review? Whatever you have?
I've got to go back and, as we move the offices today,
Yeah.
I may need to do a little more digging because
Well,
the
when
cabinet
you
it
find
used
it.
to be in isn't where it was, but
Yeah.
yes.
That way, at least us new guys can get up to speed with where Joel's at as far as how that was created.
It's several pieces long. I will get to you what I can as soon as I can. It won't be tomorrow.
Okay, and then back to public forum?
I think you had a question.
Oh, we got a motion.
No,
Too.
Well, that too.
I just wanted to add to that. I think when we were researching that, I think some of that was limited to,
It was the ball
Building.
fields.
but adding buildings onto it, not so much that it was a community feel, that it was, you can't add buildings on it because of the land trust. So
Okay.
we could only expand the building so much because it was designated athletic area.
And Chief Drury said, thank the school board for me. It gives more teeth. So
Tell Chief he's welcome.
you're welcome.
So getting back to the motion, any other discussion? Not hearing any. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So it's unanimous.
Thank you.
Then moving on to your discussion on public
Okay.
forums.
On the public forum, just to remind people that we have public forums slated for the 9th for the community for feedback on our reopening and where that's going. This will not be an unveiling of a full plan. This is to get additional feedback beyond what we have in survey form. We have some more pieces that we have worked out. We're looking at CDC guidance as our first rung of where things go. We are also looking at several other documents, not the least of which is the START documentation from the state, which has been released in semi-draft form. There will be a conversation with the superintendents on Wednesday, and then that's supposed to be released more or less by the governor toward the end of the week. What we've seen in general right now, that is fairly fluid and gives local districts a lot of autonomy. We are looking to get the feedback on what we have loosely put together, and then hope to have a solid plan to present to the board for approval the first part of August, and then obviously to make that public at the point that we move forward.
Okay, so I want to stop you there for a second. So the 9th is this Thursday,
It is this Thursday.
and what is the time, and how would people participate?
So this has gone out both via Facebook, it's on our website, and it's gone out via Messenger. First, we're holding this in 2 different sessions. The first one is from 10:30 to noon. The second is from 6:30 to 8. We will be sending out a Google Meet link, so up to 250 people can participate via that link for each of the sessions.
Now, the sessions are going to be the same format?
They will be the same format. We're doing morning and evening to accommodate people's schedules.
Okay,
So you are under no, you don't have to go to both of them. It should be more or less,
So if I was to tune in at 6:30 on Thursday night,
yes.
I'd have to find the Google Meet
The Google Meet will be posted
on the website?
on the website. It will be posted to our Facebook page.
Okay,
And it will be posted by probably about 4 o'clock that afternoon. So it's up there.
okay. So if I were to log on tomorrow, Thursday night at 6:30 on the Google Meet, what should I expect?
Okay,
That's gonna
so what we're going to do is give kind of the broad categories of here's what transportation might look like. Here's what instruction will look like. Here are the non-negotiables that aren't going to change. Here are the things that may shift depending upon whether we are fully in person, no restrictions, in person with some restrictions, or fully remote. And so that people, and looking for feedback from people to better understand where comfort levels are for different groups of folks, because I know some are saying, if there are masks involved, I don't want my kid there. There are others saying, I don't care how much social distancing you're doing, I don't want my kid there. So,
And you probably have some people saying, if there's not masks, I'm not sending my kid.
exactly, or even masks aren't enough for me to send my kid. And so I need to understand kind of where those percentages lie, what if there are pieces, and I don't pretend, I've been reading almost nothing but for 3 months, but I don't pretend to have all of the answers, and there may be a solution that someone else has said, hey, why hasn't somebody thought about X? Well, here's your chance to put that on the table for us.
So in this hour and a half time slot, twice that day, so there's going to be how much time do you think in presenting and how much time for discussion and feedback?
I'm looking at probably, the presentation will be chopped up and then we'll talk about those pieces, but the presentation will be less than a third. I'm looking at this to be
Okay.
much more discussion based.
So how many sections is there a format that you've set for this?
Right
Say it's
now-
in 3 sections, one's transportation, one's this and one's that. So when people get on, are they going to be made aware of, okay, we're going to talk about this in 3 sections and this is the first section we're going to talk about?
Yes.
The second section?
I will do an overview and then we'll break it down.
Because some people may, if it's not set that way, some people may try to get some input that's in
Out
a
of the
section.
section, right.
It should be in another section.
It will probably be 4, possibly 5 sections by the time that we get down to, it'll definitely be 3. The admin team and I are looking at a couple of other pieces to see whether we go the next level to break this out as part of this piece or discuss it separately. And part of that may be determined by the number of people that I have. If I have 250 people on Google Meet, we're going to have to break up with some different protocols than if I have 20 people.
So
As far as,
Is this the only forum that you're proposing? As
we-
far as day and time slot?
right now,
Or is there
this
some-
is the only day. We're doing a staff forum on the 8th, similar format. We're doing this then. We have also opened that up, first come, first serve. If a few people want to come to be in person as opposed to doing this on Google. In the event, we have limited that to 25 at Valley View's multipurpose room because that's the number that I can safely social distance in that room.
And that's on Thursday?
That's
the
on
9th.
Thursday. Both sessions are open first come, first serve to the general public. Right now, I have a handful in each session. And that would be RSVP to email to me, rvon@sau61.org,
Which is on the website.
which is on the website.
So if they
Yes, it
wanted to
is.
be in attendance,
Yep,
they would have to email
yep,
Ruth Ellen Vaughn, Superintendent of Schools.
correct.
And then get that
you
link
will
on us. Right.
receive a confirmation back if you've been given one of those slots.
So how are you going to, say if you get 15 people or 20 people, how are you going to, based upon the feedback, judge whether or not that is
Representative?
representative? Or is it just, you're going to, I mean, because you may have, I just throw out the devil's advocate, you may have, say, people that are at the extremes. And because they're at the extremes, they're at the meeting because they feel that there has to be absolutely no restrictions. Or the other extreme is there has to be all these restrictions. So how are you going to gauge where the rest of the public is?
Part of that is we have sent out surveys to see in general where people are. And we've received a pretty good response. We have well over 200 responses to that survey, which statistically is fairly high, particularly for Farmington.
How many was sent out?
I sent it to everybody in the district.
So 900 to 1,000?
Right. So
Okay.
I've got about a quarter back. Looking at those who, as you said, tend to be on either side of the spectrum here, but the middle ground is going to be the easier part to manage anyway. It's those who have concerns in either direction that I need to make sure that I can either mitigate or have to say,
Or just?
that's not something I can do and here's why. The middle ground, I'm not as concerned about, not that there aren't a whole host of concerns just by virtue of opening a school district in this environment, but
But
I
those
think
concerns will probably be captured from between the two extremes.
that's my thought. That's my thought. Now, it doesn't mean that if you hold middle ground that you're not welcome to join us, please do. That's fine too. Because you may understand then better where some of your neighbors are as we work through this process.
Okay, so anybody who wants to participate in this public forum regarding what the school's going to look like or potentially look like will be Thursday, either at 10:30 to 12 a.m. or 6:30 to 8 p.m.
Correct.
And that's the Thursday the 9th. Trying to plug your,
I appreciate it. Yep, and that's why I wanted to make sure it was here. But understand that it is not going to be a finalized plan that is rolled out here. This is,
that's going to formulate your recommendations that you're going to bring back to this board and convince us why your plan is, we should say yes.
well, and the plan.
We don't know what it is yet.
And the plan will have multiple pieces within it based on this scenario, or that scenario.
Right.
Because I
Right.
can't say, here's the plan and we will move forward, because that's a good way to make sure that it's not going to happen that way.
Okay, any discussion on that, the public forum from the board? Almost. Next on the agenda is, the next meeting is the 20th.
Yes.
Yep. Does anyone have any other, actually, under any other business before the board? I had one. Phone system.
Yes.
Where do we stand with that? I think it was
It
in
is
the
in
works.
process this week. So, and that's partly why there is another good public service announcement here. There is a notice on the website, on our Facebook page, and also on the SAU doors. Our phone systems were not completely down today. I expect they will be tomorrow, probably Wednesday, and possibly Thursday. So there is an emergency number. It is 834-0109. If you need to call the SAU or you're unable to get through to one of the schools, you can call that line and we will make sure that your message gets patched through to any of the schools, or you can contact us that way.
So for potentially the rest of the week, the phone systems will be down
Down.
because they're being updated
They're being
and
updated,
replaced.
yes. We will have phones in each classroom. We will have a new phone system. We will have the ability to call 911 from everywhere. We will have the ability for teachers and any staff member, not just teachers, to have a mailbox. There will be a lot of other capabilities with this system that we just don't have now. So it's in process. Extra lines were being run today to make sure that other pieces could get plugged in where they needed to be plugged in, and it's happening.
That's being done by an outside vendor or staff?
The outside vendor will be doing the phones. The additional lines to make sure everything can get plugged in was primarily in our offices as we're moving things and people needed additional lines to get dropped there. So, but I know that a great deal of work has gone into the background in the last couple of months. Thank you, Jen. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Don and Brian. So.
Good, looking forward to it. Anyone else have anything for public session? Going once, going twice. Okay, I'd like to thank everybody for participating. We're going to, at this point, end our public portion, a little early.
Oh, don't say early. Don't say early.
We have manifest signing on it that I'll be doing, and
Signing diplomas.
signing diplomas. I got my stamp. So at this point, do we have any?
Yes, I do.
Okay. So at this point, I'd like to say goodnight to everybody and make a motion to go into non-public session on RSA 91A:3, 2A, B, and C, and the nominations and resignations.
Second.
Seconded by Joel. Any discussion? Not hearing any. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Bye.
Thank you.